Recently, the joint naval exercise has been held between India and US in Indian Ocean, and trilateral exercise between the US, Japan, Australia, and US. So this has given some kind of a speculation about whether the Quad is going to get materialized again or not, because it will depend upon the request made by the Australia for joining the Malabar exercise that is going to be conducted between India and US. So if Australia also join that, it will complete the Quad. But we have to understand exactly what this Quad is and how it this idea came into being. The Quad is basically the short version of quadrilateral uh, alliance between these US, India, Australia, and Japan. So this idea came into being during the tsunami when India coordinated with all these naval power like Japan, US, and Australia in the relief and rescue effort that was made by India during the tsunami. And through these efforts, India helped its neighbor along the Indian Oceans. And these coordinated efforts was also submitted to United Nations. So that's how this idea of Quad came into being for the first time. Later on, Shinzo Abe also talked about the arc of prosperity and freedom. But this and when the Malabar exercise was conducted between India and US, then this they also included Australia and Japan in this exercise, which was basically uh, opposed by the China, saying that this is nothing but Asian NATO. So, and China actually from that time onwards started, modernizing its navy into some kind of blue water navy. But this idea could not be materialized because of the fact that at that point of time, US was somewhat also reluctant to annoy the China, because it required the help of China for resolving the nuclear crisis in the North Korea. That's why this idea could not be materialized, and later on Australia also pulled back. So that's why this whole idea of Quad was shelved. After 10 years of a time, again it was revised in 2017 as a Quad 2.0, when all these officials from these four countries met in Manila after they actually reassessed the challenges posed by China. These official from the four countries met, and that's how this whole the idea of Quad was revived again as a 2.0, Quad 2.0. But still there was a lot of differences between these countries. For example, India wanted to consider Indo-Pacific region from the Africa to the west coast of USA, whereas the US wanted it to be confined to only Indian Ocean. So that's how these differences was emerged, and even the joint communique also could not be issued. But later on these differences was narrowed down, and this country started cooperating with each other in this area in many spheres. For example, terrorism, the sustainable development, maritime security, cyber security, and most important, the connectivity. So these countries started actually cooperating with each other in these areas, and for example, India is cooperating to increase the connectivity with Australia in Indo-Pacific island region. India and US is also cooperating in South Asia. India, Japan is cooperating in Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar. So there is a huge cooperation between these countries, and India also started building even strong military ties with these countries. But still, India is reluctant to join any kind of alliances, as you may have also heard our foreign minister Jaishankar saying that India don't want to be a member of any alliances. So, why exactly India is somewhat reluctant to join this Quad? Because the first reason is that India is the only country in the Quad which actually shares the boundary between the China. The second problem that India doesn't want to join any kind of alliances because as you know that India right from the beginning has actually followed the non-alignment policy. That's why they are still reluctant. And the another problem with India is that India is also member of Shanghai Cooperation, the BRICS, and the RIC. So that's why it becomes little bit difficult for India to join the Quad. So what kind of option that India have right now? Because India, uh, after this incidents in Galwan Valley and along the LAC, that India has a lot of option to manage the China. It can manage China either through the Russia, or it can bring the some middle, you can say some small power in the world, like you can South Africa, Brazil, UK, UAE. Then the third option that India has, that it can also be the part of the Quad, like to manage the China, because these are all the adversaries of China. So if India becomes the part of Quad, then it is going to change the security regional security structure in the India Indo-Pacific region. Then we will have to understand exactly why this Quad is necessary, or because why these four countries are coming together to form a Quad, because of the fact that this, first of all, this area is very strategically very important, because almost all the trade sea lane, important sea lane, passes through this area from Indian Ocean to the Malacca Strait into the West Pacific region. Then, so that's why this area become strategically very important, and that was the reason why Obama also actually prepared this Asia pivot policy, through which US had to make alliances with all the countries in the Southeast Asia. In the Asia Pacific region also, there is a Cold War going on between India or between China and US, because the US influence in this region is diminishing gradually. And after the Trump came to the power, he also started following the America First policy, because through this policy he actually said that America cannot take lot of responsibility across the world, which for which the America spent huge amount of money. Like for example, Japan is under the nuclear umbrella. So still there are a lot of militaries, U.S. militaries is stationed in the Japan, for which U.S. spent huge amount of money. And recently there was a talk about whether this military should be brought back to the US, because of the fact that they cannot spend huge amount of money on these obligations. So that's why US think that India should fight war in this region on behalf of the US, even by using its own resources. That is the reason why you may have observed that India has been declared as a strategic ally of US, and in this command in the Pacific has been renamed as a Indo-Pacific Command. So that is why India becomes very important. And Japan also has a lot of conflict with respect to the territorial boundaries. Like they have a very territorial dispute between China and Japan, and in South China Sea also. The China has a lot of dispute with this Asian, Southeast Asian neighbors. So that's why these all the countries are coming together to contain the China. These countries also have a lot of similarity. Like for example, all these countries are democratic countries. That's why they are also. This Quad is also known as Arc of Democracy. So that is the reason why exactly these countries are coming together, and they want to contain the China in this region.